my name is Amanda Berger. I am the director of SoulSisterhood, a ministry for girls that helps them grow in their faith and explore their creativity and helps them dig deeper into who God has created them to be. The SoulSisterhood began in 2006. We started out by hosting summer camps, basically, where girls would come and spend 5 days kind of digging deep into who God created them to be, using arts and crafts and cooking and basically any kind of creative endeavor to help them just try new stuff and figure out what it is that God is doing inside each one of them. What had to change? SoulSisterhood was born out of an idea that I had. I'd been sort of looking around, exploring my own spirituality, trying to figure out how to more deeply connect with God for myself, and I kept coming across all of these different organizations that were helping women sort of dig deep and discover who they were through art and creativity, which I thought was amazing, but a lot of them didn't have a spiritual component to it. Which I felt like was a huge missing piece, especially for me. If I was going to do this, I wanted that faith element to it. And as I was talking about it with a friend one day over coffee, we were just kind of talking about the state of being a woman and what it means and who we are and who we're created to be. And I started talking about how, you know, all of these things are great that help us want to go back and rediscover who we are, but wouldn't it be even better if there was something like that for girls, for teenagers, before they got to the point where they sort of lost track of who they were, to discover it early on in life, to live a lot longer in that place of knowing who God has created them to be, instead of having to go back after many, many years of adulthood and try and figure out, well, what was I supposed to be doing in this world to begin with? So actually at that same coffee meeting, you know, we were just talking about this, and my friend looks at me and says, well, you could do that, you know, like, you know how to lead a retreat, you know about arts and creativity, like, you know how to make that happen. So you should do it. And my first thought was like, oh, that's not really what I meant. But the more I started to think about it, the more I sensed that maybe this was the thing that God was calling me to do next. This came about, you know, 5 years into me doing full-time middle school ministry. I'd had kind of a girls group growing all along and was wondering what the next steps for them were as well. And so I did really feel like, both through that affirmation from a friend and sort of noodling over this idea in my head, that maybe God was calling me to do something for girls and girls ministry. And so just kind of started to think about, well, what would that look like, and what do we do next? How do we move forward with that idea? The first step. For me, it started out as just putting together a 1 week retreat. The first year we just did 1 week with 22 girls. It sold out really fast, like within a couple of weeks of my announcing what we were doing. And so clearly I was had hit a felt need. I was like, okay, there's something to this. It's not just me. And that first step was sort of figuring out, how do we do this? We put together this first week, and it was a huge learning curve that first year. And I think one of the other things was, when I first started it, was thinking that this was just a week, a special retreat for the girls at the church that I was currently in. It was, as that idea started to take shape a little bit more, and through further conversations with like my supervisor and my family and friends, where we sort of started to go, well, maybe this is more than that. Maybe it's its own ministry. Maybe it's more than something that's just meant to stay here within our own congregation. Maybe it has wider implications and could be shared with more people. So that was at the point where we really started to think about it as kind of its own ministry, its own brand, and to start looking at some of the things that were entailed with that, really giving it a mission and a vision and purpose, and all of those things that helped to shape the early days of what we are and who we are and what we are trying to do in the world. Struggles. Truth be told, I don't think you start any new ministry without opposition somewhere. Even in some of the simplest things, there were a few different things that kind of stick out in my mind as early struggles and oppositions. The main one was I ran into a lot of people who said, okay, this is great, you're doing this thing and it's amazing and it's helping lots of girls, but I have sons, there are boys in my life who could use something just as powerful. And the struggle between figuring out what it was that I was really called to, and I feel very strongly that that is to girls ministry and to really working with young women, helping them figure out who they are and their creativity. And while I also think that's important for boys, realizing that that wasn't my calling and that I probably wasn't the right leader for something like that, and that if there was meant to be a counterpoint, that God would raise up the leader somewhere who would do that thing. So that has always been kind of a tension within my ministry, is those people who are like, well, great, but what about the boys? Another thing that's been hard is that a lot of the things about Soul Sisterhood, about sort of developing this brand and turning it into its own thing, have been a lot like developing your own small business. And so in that case, although the church that I work for owns Soul Sisterhood and that brand, I am its sole employee. I am the only one who is in charge of doing stuff for it, which means that I do everything from ordering supplies and sending mailings to figuring out how to use social media to our advantage, figuring out how to do all of the things that it takes to make a business successful and to kind of see where all the pieces fit together in that. And that's been really hard. That's not my training. Definitely not a business administration type, and financial struggle always, trying to figure out how to make it pay for itself, trying to choose the next best thing for it to do and really stick to the mission and vision of what we do with Soul Sisterhood and not spread myself too thin. So that's always been a part of the struggle as well. We have just wrapped up our 6th season of summer camps. Every year we've grown a little bit, added weeks. We now do middle school weeks. We have senior high week. We have elementary school day camps where we travel to different churches and provide this sort of Soul Sisterhood experience for younger girls as well. And the next things we're working on is trying to figure out how to create something a little less event driven that also has a wider reach. And so we've really been working on product development, something that we have that we can sell as a resource to other youth workers. We're working on something called DIY devotions, which are a kind of a kit that you would order in the mail, and it comes with devotion book and project ideas and all kinds of fun stuff to kind of bring that Soul Sisterhood experience into girls' homes, into a church setting where you could use that for a small group, all of that kind of stuff. Kind of taking what's really good about Soul Sisterhood and making it into a package that can be reproduced in other places. And while all of it is really good and exciting, I love what I've been called to do, the opportunity to have a church that supports all of that. I know that's unusual, to have a church where they have let this become my job. That's all I do is work for Soul Sisterhood now. And the struggle with that also is that there's more demand than me as a single person or the capacity of sort of the brand to expand at this point. And trying to figure out what that looks like and how we do that, and how we use our financial resources wisely. But very excited about the fact that this seems to be something that continues to be a felt need for girls, that I hear from youth workers all over the place where they need more resources for their girls, and the creative element that seems to appeal to so many people.